Hi, thank you for taking time today out of your busy schedule to watch this short video about Ownify and the home buying process. What we're going to do today is we're going to walk through what the process looks like for you as the agent and for the buyer. At the end of this video, there will be a short quiz. Please don't worry, it is not graded. And once you've completed the quiz, you will be granted access to our exclusive agent portal. Within the agent portal, you're going to find a ton of tools for your toolbox, including collateral for Facebook, one-pagers, as well as a link that you will be able to use to invite buyers to use Ownify. If the buyer applies with Ownify using the link that you share with them, you will be able to track what their process is as they go through that process. Wonderful tool to have. We recommend that you use it often. Let's go ahead and dive in. So a lot of times we're asked, when do we introduce Ownify to our customers? And we want you to think in your mind that the best time to introduce Ownify to customers is at the buyer consultation. What we found is that buyers like the idea of being able to make an informed decision. So if you are talking about different financing options and you bring up mortgage financing options at the same time as you bring up Ownify financing options, that gives them full transparency and allows them to make an educated decision. A lot of times we have buyers who are mortgage eligible who decide to use Ownify. The buyer does not, you don't have to wait until the buyer is told that they're mortgage ineligible to talk about Ownify. We've also determined that there's 3 target customers that usually fit the mold for being an Ownify, an Oni. This is not saying that there's not other customers out there that would make the perfect Oni. These are just the 3 typical ones that we see the most often. The first being the renting pro. This is someone who lives in an apartment, has been living in an apartment, has no idea that living in a home that they own is even a possibility. It seems so far-fetched that they can't even imagine it. What we need to do is tap into this market because these guys are going to be our first-time home buyers who really truly define what an Oni is. They will make the perfect customers because they will be able to get into homes sooner and build equity and set them up for success. The second is on the fence. We've all had those buyers who are absolutely petrified of home ownership, whether it be because of the thought of having to make repairs or the cost or just, the actual just thought of, oh my gosh, I own a home. A lot of people get really scared and get cold feet. Ownify is perfect for them. It is truly a stepping stone into home ownership. They are able to own a portion of the home, continue to own more each month, and build equity without the worry and stress of home ownership. And lastly, the new start Onis. These are the guys who have probably owned a home in the past, don't own it any longer, and are looking for a fresh new start. Think about maybe someone who's recently gone through a divorce and needs a smaller home, or the kids are off to college and mom and dad have decided that they need something smaller. This is the perfect chance for them to use Ownify and live in a stress-free life while still continuing to build equity. With Ownify and the buyer, you will sign a buyer agency agreement with both. You will have your buyer agency agreement signed with the buyer like normal, and once they decide to work with Ownify, you will also sign a buyer agency agreement with us. During the purchase, you will be representing both the customer and Ownify, but Ownify will have the final decision. This does not mean that we will not take into account for what the buyer wishes are. It just means that we do have the right to make the final decision. When qualifying the customer, please keep in mind these 3 different parts. 1, credit, 2, income, and 3, identity. When the buyer is doing the application on Ownify.com, they are going through these 3 steps. It is simple, it is short, and it is sweet. The credit check does not hit their credit. The income is a simple upload of recent pay stubs, and the identity is just to prove that they are a U.S. citizen or permanent resident. Please do note that once you are an accredited agent and you have access to the agent portal, you will be made aware of the status progress or the progress of each buyer that you refer as they complete the application online. So if they get hung up with a certain part, you'll be able to give them a call and help them and walk them through any questions they may have. With Ownify, there are some legal agreements that need to be signed between us and the buyer. The first being the participation agreement. This is signed during the application phase and is simply an agreement between Ownify and the buyer that we agree to work together. The second are the ONI agreements, and these are signed 3 days prior to closing. Please do note that these documents will be signed electronically. With Ownify, submitting the application fee is simple. Once a budget has been established, the customer is presented with the participation agreement, which outlines the terms of the program. We mentioned this on the last slide. Once they have signed the participation agreement, they are going to submit their $500 application fee. Half of this fee, $250, is refundable if the customer does not purchase a home with Ownify. The other half is credited towards the down payment amount of that 2%. They will be wiring that money, the $500 to us, and once they wire that $500, they will be able to go start looking at homes and be able to do some shopping. See, home shopping can commence. They are ready to work with you and go out and see what's on the market. They are going to know exactly what their purchase power is and what their budget will be. They will have a very close approximate amount of what their amount each month will be. And so they feel comfortable while they are out searching for homes. Once they've identified a home, we will do a little bit of work on the back end to confirm that it is eligible for our program, and we'll do an automated evaluation model. We are going to work with you when it comes to making an offer. We trust you to know the current market values and the CMAs and help us figure out the value or the offer that should be made. Please note the key eligibility criteria for each property is it needs to be a single family home located within the triangle, and you can tell if it's within the triangle as if it is listed on the triangle MLS. We do not do condos or townhomes. It needs to be at least 2 bedrooms and 1.5 baths on 2 acres or less of property and between $250,000 and $750,000. Prior to Ownify submitting an offer on behalf of the buyer, the customer must send us their 2% down payment. The reason for this is that it protects Ownify, as we will be committing a substantial due diligence and earnest money towards the transaction once we get our offer accepted, so we need the buyer to have some skin in the game. The down payment is maybe sent via ACH or wire transfer. The method required is dependent on the circumstances and the timing of the transaction. We do recommend that once you start home shopping, you have the buyer go ahead and send over 2% of whatever they're approved for, and we can hold on to it in a trust account. That way, when they are ready to make an offer, they are ready to go. They don't have to wait for that wire to come through to us. It must be received prior to us extending an offer, so please do keep that in mind. Once we have the 2% down payment, we are able to make an offer. We will work, as I mentioned before, we will work with you, the buyer, and ourselves to discuss the valuation terms and set expectations around submitting a winning bid. We sure hope and expect that you will have viewed this house in person, inside and outside, before making an offer. Let's talk about the offer outcome. If the offer is accepted, and as soon as we're notified, we will wire the due diligence and earnest money fees out. Of course, the due diligence will go straight to the seller, and the earnest money will go straight to the escrow agent. We will also kick off title search with our preferred closing attorney and coordinate the home inspection through our partner Inspectify, which you are welcome and asked to attend if available. If the offer is not accepted, we are given the opportunity, if we're giving the opportunity to present best and final, we will discuss jointly and decide the best approach to be taken. If we do not win, the 2% down payment is refunded to the customer, or if they would like us to continue to hold it in trust for them, we are happy to do so, and we can use that money towards the next home that they find and decide to make an offer on. If we win, we're in the due diligence period. After receiving the inspection report, we will share this with you and the customer for review. We will walk through the report together, noting any critical defects and required repairs. We will discuss strategy with you and the buyer regarding any seller concessions. We will be getting backgrounds. In the background, we will be getting quotes for any necessary repairs using local vendors. We will be most likely asking most of the time for the seller to give a concession as opposed to the seller to complete the repairs that are needed. Pre-closing. As mentioned on a previous slide, the ONI will sign the ONI agreements 3 working days prior to the closing. They will have had plenty of time to review these documents ahead of time, but they will need to make sure that they are signed no later than 3 days prior to the closing date. Once we receive the final settlement statement, we will wire the required funds to the escrow closing attorney, and we will e-sign all documents whenever possible, either the day prior to or the day of closing. We do ask that, as usual, you will perform a final walkthrough of the property to make sure that everything is the way it should be. Closing post-closing. We're going to ask you to please obtain the key and give it to the new ONI. And we are going to be so excited to celebrate with them and with you, and would love to be updated on how everything goes as they're moving in. Any necessary repairs are going to be scheduled and completed. The buyer's going to be aware of this, and they're going to know if the repairs need to be made before they're able to move in or once they moved in. It just depends on the situation. We will sign the memorandum of option, which will be notarized and recorded. Ownify will coordinate the notarization and recordation, and this will be taken care of the closing attorney, something that the buyer does not need to even worry about. Once the buyer has moved in, we are going to have a monthly payment set up, and they will be asked to pay their occupancy fee on the first of the month following the closing. This one simple payment is going to cover everything for their new home. This is going to cover their equity buy, their insurance, taxes, repairs, occupancy payment to Ownify, and HOA if there is one. The buyer is also going to gain access to the Ownify customer portal, where they're able to view their account, watch their equity grow, and make additional equity payments if they wish to. They can now make the home their own. They have the ability to renovate and remodel and paint, whatever they want to do. Just make sure that they know if there's any substantial changes, such as something that requires a permit, Ownify is going to ask to be notified. They live there happily ever after until they reach 5 years, and they have the option to renew at that point. If your buyer decides that it is time to move on from Ownify for any reason whatsoever, they are absolutely allowed to. They are not held to that home for 5 years. They are able to move out beforehand if needed. They can buy out Ownify at any point at the current market indexed value. There is a floor of 105% of the entry price on the first 3 years of the program. This will reduce to 100% of the entry price over the remaining term of the program. This is just to make sure that we have our expenses covered, because we put out so much money at the start of the relationship. The customer will be charged a 1% fee based on the original entry price to complete the buyout. When it's time to move out, the customer is able to move out of the property at any time. We do ask for a 60 days notice to Ownify. Once we've gotten that notice from the buyer, we will pay out the equity that they've built out minus the relisting fee of 4% of the index value. Please do note that the relisting fee reduces to 2% based on the time the customer remains with Ownify. So that means that the longer they live in the house, the less of a relisting fee that they're going to have to pay Ownify. And we just ask for the relisting fee to make sure that we can list the property with an agent like yourself and pay fair market commission. All right, so that's all I've got today as far as the actual process to get your buyer to become an Oni. Next, you're going to take the quick little quiz I did mention, and after that, you will become an Ownify accredited agent. Thank you so much for your time today, and I hope you have a wonderful day. And please do call us with any questions. We are here to help. Thank you.